So we're here at in London at the inaugural Pall Mall Concours, and I'll show you through an array of fantastic cars, some of which I've never seen or heard of before, but some very, very interesting cars. I want to start by congratulating the organisers, because I don't think getting permission to close Pall Mall and put 100 veteran cars in would have been an easy feat. So if we turn around and look behind, there's the first car in the group here is a Maxim, which is a car I've never heard of. But if you take a look at this car here, this is a Panhard Levasseur, and the Panhard Levasseur is a very famous veteran make, but more so because of the fact it was the first vehicle that actually is credited with going radiator, motor, gearbox, diff, which until the advent of modern electric cars is still the way cars are made today. So that's very good. If we keep on walking down the line here,
getting them out for now.
we have an early Peugeot. I know there's a four-cylinder one of these in Australia that was on the last pre-05 tour. I think this is a two-cylinder one, but I can't be 100% correct. But just a nice car, very early make Peugeot, still made today. So one of the only surviving makes from the very earliest part of motoring history. We get into one of my favourite makes, Cadillac, 1904 Model B. An unusual vehicle and orient buckboard. Very nice. I had the pleasure of bringing one of those into the country for a customer last year. And this vehicle here, 1903 Darrick, very nice car. Just amazing, the variety, the size, the shapes, all manufactured pre-1905, and that's just the wonderful thing about it. I believe this is a Sidley. A Humber. Another Peugeot. Another Cadillac.
We'll have a look. What number is it?
So that's a Columbia, American car.
Yeah, good car.
Very unusual. Another Cadillac, 1903 Model A. We're in the process of restoring two of those for customers at home. Just a wonderful array of different vehicles. The configurations, if you look at this, it's called a four-car, where you can actually sit in front and it opens up. So just totally different design to your classic touring car. Runabouts. Just have a look at the size of this car. This is just a beautiful, big, early veteran car. Everybody thinks of early De Dions as being small, one-cylinder cars and everything. This is a big early De Dion. No early car run would be complete without a couple of Oldsmobiles. This is, I believe, a Hertu. No, it's a Fiat, one of the brands I've never heard of before or seen before. So interesting dual chain drive.
No.
1902 Decret, again, a car I've never heard of. Interesting.
It's not how it works.
There's a couple of Albions here, and we looked at purchasing an Albion two-cylinder some time ago, and I actually did some research on the London to Brighton because I knew there were some Albions that did the tour. But this is my first time in seeing them in the flesh. These chain covers are very typical. Nearly every single Albion all the way through to about 1910 had the dual chain drive and those chain covers on them. So very interesting. A little Renault. And another Albion, an earlier one. It's a fantastic little Gladiator runabout that's very nice, and again a brand that I've read about a lot and seen photos of lot but never seen one in the flesh. A Darrick, 1904 Darrick, another Model B Cadillac.
Any comment on the roof on this?
I'm a big fan of Surrey tops, and this is quite a nice Surrey top. There's lots of different designs of how the Surrey top is held up. Some of them have windscreens that actually fold back up into the top. We'll be putting a Surrey top on our 1899 Haynes Apperson. So this is really nice. And if we look at the car behind us, which is a very early production Rambler, and again, it's got a Surrey top. It has the windscreen. And if I look up here, I can't see that one actually folds back up into the roof, but it's very nice, as I say, early production Rambler.
That it can't fold in.
If it was going to fold up, it normally has a couple of channels just up in here, and this may just be a different system, but it would actually allow it to actually fold back up there, and so you could have it without a windscreen, or in inclement weather you could put the windscreen down. And as you can see with this, it's also got roll-up side curtains that fold down and clip to protect you in the weather. This is another American vehicle. This is a Knox. I'm guessing single cylinder. It's what they call a porcupine Knox because it's air cooled, and the way they actually cool the motor is by putting 1,000 screws into the side of the cylinder, and those screws actually dissipate the heat. Hence the name porcupine. $1900 International, but I suspect not from the same company that made tractors famous. Very early Renault. Again, another brand that is survived from the very earliest days of motoring history. There's probably less than a dozen that actually still survive from when they first started in the early 1900s. So this is a 1904 example. Very nice 1903 Darrick touring car. Curved dash Oldsmobile. Another very early production American car. Most people think that Maxwell's only started in 1905, and we certainly have a 1906 in our shed, but this is a very early production 1904 one. One of my favourite cars on the tour is it's a white steamer. There's a number of white steamers on the tour, and this is, I believe, 1904. Again, it's got a Surrey top, but instead of having a fixed windscreen, this has got what we would call a winter front. So it actually is a canvas windscreen that unbuttons and rolls away. And if you look here, you'll see the very different treatment for the way the Surrey top is held up. And as I say, it depends on the brand of the car. And you've got to remember this was an accessory at the time. So you would have asked the dealer to fit that to the car. 1899 Daimler, and you have to remember that Daimler and Benz only lived 20 miles away from each other, but in the very same year, virtually the same month, both came up with an internal combustion automobile. And Daimler is, again, one of the survivors from the early days of motoring. Scottish Argyle.
Then I had to move all his mud.
Another curved dash Oldsmobile. And a early Napier. Napier actually rivaled Rolls-Royce for quality in the very early days, and obviously Rolls-Royce held out, and but Napier was certainly up there, and they're a good quality veteran car. So today, I confess I'm not sure exactly what that is. It looks like it's got a De Dion motor in the back and De Dion componentry, which is not unusual because in 1900 De Dion made 7,000 motors and sold them as proprietary motors to all sorts of manufacturers around the world. So it's a so there you are, it's a De Courville, 1899 De Courville. Sorry. Yeah. Early Renault, followed by a 1902 Darrick. And that's only half the cars here. This is a 1904 Fiat race car. It's all the way here from Italy, and I had the pleasure of talking to the owner of it yesterday, and he was explaining it started life as a 100 horsepower car in 1904, and because it was raced all the way through till 1907, it was actually upgraded year on year on year. Then in 1905, it was upgraded to 110 horsepower, then 120 horsepower, and its final configuration as it sits here now at 140 horsepower. So it's a fantastic original example of a car that was developed and built in 1904 and then continually evolved as a race car for the Fiat factory right the way through to 1907, and has been preserved ever since, and now is presented here today. Just a fantastic piece of automotive history. Like many of the big cars of the area, this has dual chain drive on the rear. You'll note that the springs are wrapped to make sure that the moisture stays in between the springs. And what is really interesting to me is these are wheel weights to balance the wheels. You'll see them on the front wheels as well, but that means that they've actually trued the wheels up so that they are actually spinning perfectly round. If you follow a number of veterans, you'll actually quite often see the wheels wobbling like this. That is designed to stop this when you remember that this car is capable of 90 or 100 mile an hour. One last thing I wanted to show you at the St James Motoring Spectacular, is some of the history that's here. So if you take this particular car here, you're right, Mercedes GT, 2024 model, the absolute latest in Mercedes. And if we come down a little bit further here, we have a 1955 streamlined Mercedes. So this was cutting edge at the time, and just a fabulous piece of machinery. Then if we come down a little bit further, we get right back into the roots of Mercedes. So it goes without saying that Mercedes and Benz intrinsically linked, and without Bertha Benz, we'd struggle to have a motoring industry in many people's eyes. So this is a 1904 Mercedes. It's a 28, 32 horsepower four-cylinder car. They did make bigger ones, but this is just a fabulous example of 1904 Mercedes. So we showed you the earlier Benz, the 1899 Benz earlier. So this is just a fabulous car, and it's an absolutely fabulous event when you look at all of the different bits and pieces. So now we're going to go and start the Thomas very shortly, take it back to our accommodation. We're looking forward to the participants' reception this evening, and then a bright and early start tomorrow for the London to Brighton run. Okay, so we're going to do the start procedure on the Thomas. It's actually reasonably simple. The first thing we do is we put the choke on all the way, which is that lever there, down full. Then we get the crank handle, which is under here. I'm going to turn it over twice without any ignition. No, not yet. Turn it over twice without any ignition. One. Two. I'm going to knock the choke back. Make sure we're at 3 notches on the advance and retard. 1, 2, 3. Ignition on. And hopefully it'll start first crank. Advance the spark a couple of notches. Turn the oilers on. And there we have it. Simple as that.